did were actually true. So then just started digging after that, and being down here, it was pretty hidden inside of here. So being able to dig and find more information, it kind of made it a journey, but also made it a challenge. And so knowing that it was hidden is what kind of lit the fire for me to just go find as much as I could. So,
Okay. Okay. And I guess before we even start in the conversation, I want to, first of all, anybody who's watching that's in Instagram and anywhere else, I'm going to shut off that feed. This is part of the book club, but I want to invite everybody in. You can join for free. Just go to blackkeystogreatness.com, or if you're on Instagram, you can hit the link in the bio. So, so in terms of just, I've always got this sense that the state of Oklahoma really didn't want the Black people in Tulsa to really know a whole lot about what happened, that there's been a lot of cover-ups that have occurred through time. Can you kind of speak to some of that so we lay that groundwork for why your information is so important?
Yeah, it was hidden here for, in my opinion, a couple of different reasons. Number one, the city of Tulsa and the state of Oklahoma knew it was responsible for destroying Black Wall Street, but also that spirit of entrepreneurship and community wasn't passed on from generation to generation. So not only did we not know about what we had built, we also didn't have that connection anymore. So if me, for instance, had I known about Greenwood and my family being in Greenwood when I was a kid, my career trajectory would have went totally different. So this city has tried to wipe its hands clean of it and just let it go. And so we were told all the time it was a small riot, 36 people died. That was it. So the Tulsa Race Riots was just when it was mentioned in school, it was something to just kind of brush over and get to the next thing. But I was also able to learn as I got older that parts of Black Wall Street were then named after a Klansman. It was named after one of the Klansmen that participated in burning it. So and we didn't actually get that name changed until 2 years ago. So to know that we had been going to schools named after Klansmen who participated in the massacre, we have an airport named after one of the Klansmen, an entire side of town and district named after one of the Klansmen. So it's, had we known the history of it, years ago, of course, all of that stuff would have been different.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask everybody in the chat, give me a yes or no. Yeah, that's just the beginning. I want y'all to just know this. How many of y'all knew that parts of Black Wall Street was named after a Klansman who participated in the burning of Black Wall Street? How many of y'all knew that? How many of y'all knew that this kind of thing was going? This is shocking, but it's not surprising, right? It's shocking, but it's not surprising because we know the depth of the shenanigans in terms of how our history gets hidden from us, which is what makes somebody like you so important, Kode. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut myself up and let you do a lot of the talking. So would you mind kind of telling us the story? I want everybody to clear your mind and pretend like you did not know anything about this. Pretend like this is your first time hearing about the Black Wall Street situation and in the history of it. And I want you to just listen to what his brother has to say. Could you want to? So you want to start from the beginning in terms of how you do your tour and things like that?
Yeah, we could do that. So here in Black Wall Street, how I always start my tours is by letting people know that what happened here in Black Wall Street is not only American history, it's Black history. It isn't something that we try to hoard for ourselves. Our story here, this was the wealthiest Black community in the U.S., but it was not unique in the fact that it was a wealthy Black community. We built these all over the country. So what happened to this one is the same thing that happened to all the others. What makes this one a little bit different, this was the first time planes had been used to bomb Americans by other Americans. This is also the first time it's been proven that the city government, as well as the federal government, participated in burning a Black town. Typically, it's always blamed on the Klan. And as my grandmother would always say, that you've never met a white man named Klan. So the Klan is a collection of people, not that's not the person who did it. It's a collection of people. So I give the history from talking about the people, what they were able to do, and kind of bringing that full circle. So here in Greenwood, we had the Dreamland Theater that was owned by Lula Williams, She and her husband, John Williams, were one of the wealthier families in Greenwood. They were the first family in Oklahoma to own multiple movie theaters at the time. Lula Williams had, the Dreamland had 750 seats. It was the only one with air conditioning at that time. And so to be fully woman owned, Black woman owned, and be right here in Greenwood, it was the most popular business down here in the Greenwood district. It was one of the last ones that was burned during the massacre. So it helped shelter quite a few people that were able to survive because of it. And then Lula Williams, after it was burned, she had to sell her other two theaters in Muskogee, Oklahoma, and Okmulgee, Oklahoma, in order to rebuild that very first one. So just to know that the narrative has always been that in 1921, Black Wall Street stopped. Lula Williams was proof that through those fires and through everything that happened in 1921, she had that rebuilt in 1922, and the Dreamland Theater sat there until 1969. So as far back as we think this history goes, it was actually a lot more recent than we think. She and her husband owned a candy store together. They had an ice cream parlor, they had a drugstore, and then he had a car garage. They were the first family in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black or white, to purchase a Ford Model T. John Williams bought the very first one here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was the first mechanic to be licensed to fix Ford Model Ts here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we had a lot of firsts in the Black community that were right here in Greenwood. Then we had the next person, which was O.W. Gurley. O.W. Gurley is actually who we get the name Greenwood from. He was in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, is where he moved here from, but he had 305 acres of land there. He technically could have built Greenwood in Arkansas, but he chose to come here to Tulsa, Oklahoma. That reason was there was a big push to make Oklahoma the first all-Black state in the U.S. So that's what attracted O.W. Gurley to this area. He came in 1889, in which he left his appointment with President Grover Cleveland in order to move here. So to know that this entrepreneur, first generation freedman, came here, bought the first 40 acres of land from the Creek natives that were here. And the rule was he would only sell it to other African Americans when he got here. So this man had a vision of building a city, building something on its own. The first thing he built here was a hotel. It was the largest Black-owned hotel in America, but only very briefly. Someone else built one a little bit larger after that. But with the businesses in Greenwood, there were 197 different businesses here during the massacre. O.W. Gurley either owned or helped start 103 of them. So everybody pretty much went through him. He was the main loan officer for the area. He was the fireman for the area. He was also the sheriff and the elected official. So O.W. Gurley solely was the reason we even had a Black Wall Street. So to know that this man did have a job that he could have stayed at, which did set him up with a pretty good life. But he chose to leave all that behind to come here into foreign land, really, and build something not just for his family, but for Black people as a whole. He was able to do that. But after the massacre, he was arrested for inciting a riot. He was put into an internment camp, which he lived in for a little bit over a year. Once he got out, the only thing he rebuilt in Greenwood was that very first hotel, and then he moved to California. So knowing that in today's money, he would have been worth around $15 million, but he lost literally all of his wealth while he was here during the massacre. So when he moved to California, by the time he passed, he had less than $300,000. So he literally committed everything to building this place. He set the rules on how Greenwood would look. His number one rule was no one was allowed to have a building to themselves. So no matter how much money you had, how big your building was, you had to house another family's business inside of it. So every building had multiple businesses inside of it. So this was able to maximize the space. But if you can imagine taking a bunch of people from different parts of the country and telling them they have to work together. So these are people that in their home cities, they could have done whatever they wanted. being wealthy, as a picture of O.W. Gurley, being wealthy, they're used to kind of doing what they would like to do. But when they got here, he made sure every single person here worked together. And so Greenwood would not have been Greenwood if it wasn't for O.W. Gurley. He also only named it Greenwood because his parents were from Greenwood, Mississippi. So our tie to Mississippi comes for that reason. And so the next person normally we talk about is Dr. A.C. Jackson. Dr. A.C. Jackson was one of the top 5 surgeons in the country at the time, black or white. He was one of only 8 black doctors at the time that was licensed to practice on blacks and whites. The Mayo brothers had crowned him as the most capable Negro in America in medicine. So this prominent doctor started the first black-owned hospital here in Oklahoma. Fristol Memorial was the name of that hospital. So Dr. AC also trained about 60% of the black doctors that practiced in Greenwood. So the reason I use him a lot is because there was a postcard used here in Oklahoma, and it was Dr. A.C. Jackson, deceased in the street. That was Oklahoma's most popular postcard for almost 25 years. So
wait. I'm sorry. Can I gotta, can you say that again about that? Wait, say that one more time. I'm sorry. I think I heard it, but I need to rehear this. Say that again.
Yeah. So a picture of Dr. A.C. Jackson murdered in the street was used as a postcard here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but it was used in Oklahoma, and it was Oklahoma's most popular postcard for about 25 years. So that just shows you that not only at the time of the massacre, murder was taking place, but they also had camera crews here. They were taking pictures of deceased people. There was video that exists of what the massacre looked like, houses and buildings still on fire. People were bringing their families in to loot the homes before they were burning. But at the time, none of the founders of Greenwood were supposed to be killed. They were all supposed to be arrested. Dr. A.C. Jackson ended up being the only one of the founders that was actually murdered during the massacre. And he was killed by 2 teenage kids. They were about 14 at the time. That's the only thing we've been able to discover about them. Their names were never documented, but their ages were. They shot him in front of his home after they marched him out of his house. He was taken to the internment camp, which was ran by the Red Cross, in which he was left outside of the internment camp, where he bled out and ended up dying the next day. And that's when the photo was taken of him. There's various photos that exist of it, most of which has his entire body exposed. But the one that was used as the postcard had a sheet over his face. The pictures that were taken in Greenwood, they all pretty much, there were a bunch of notes that were wrote on them. Some of them say things like cleansing Tulsa of Negroes, running the Negro out of Tulsa, firing Little Africa. Like, these are things that were written on most of the pictures that exist about Greenwood. So with Dr. A.C. Jackson, this year is the very first year that there's been any monument that had Dr. A.C. Jackson or O.W. Gurley's name on it. They actually just unveiled it maybe 2.5 weeks ago. So it's the first time his name has been mentioned here really at all. Even though our school, Oklahoma State, is right here in Greenwood, actually, and OSU has a medical school. So even though that they're that closely tied to medicine, but that was a person that we had left out of our history books here. That's not something or a person that we get to learn about. So to know that this man worked his way up the way he did, he actually wasn't a part of the massacre at all. He was not a soldier. He was inside of his home, marched out and then shot. So that account actually comes directly from his neighbor, who was a white male at the time.
Okay, so let me jump in. I want everybody to like take a minute and kind of process some of this. Now, first of all, didn't I tell y'all that you were going to hear some stuff that you have never heard anywhere else? Give me a yes or no. Did anybody just the part alone about Dr. A.C. Jackson, one of the best surgeons on the planet, who wasn't just murdered during the massacre, but they put him on a postcard that was the most popular postcard in Oklahoma for 25 years. Did I say that right, Kode? Okay, so I need y'all to just, we gotta stop because the thing about Kode is this brother's got so much knowledge about this that he'll keep going. There'll be so much stuff there. But sometimes you get I know when I was listening to you, man, I had to stop and say, wait a minute, wait, I need to hear that again. I need to say that again in my head because it's so heavy and deep and it's so unknown. Like they don't, and it really, I think, is a wake-up call for us in terms of understanding the depth of the savagery of just whatever it is that we're dealing with. And I don't want to make it into an overly political conversation, but it definitely is one. It's already one, right? So let me go ahead and I'm gonna be quiet, but I want everybody to know, if you are listening on Instagram, I'm about to shut off my Instagram. You can join us. The link's in the bio. Just go to blackkeystogreatness.com. You can come in to the book club for free. Kode's gonna keep talking. It's his show tonight. I'm just going to pop in every few minutes and re-guide us. But if you want to know why we do things like the convention and all that, it's because we have to have the spaces where we can express our truth without anybody else's interference. So Kode, the floor is yours, brother. Please continue.
All right. So part of the reason I do kind of go through it the way I do, when I first started learning about Greenwood's history, it was incredibly easy to get angry. Being here, the anger was more so not necessarily what happened, because I wasn't surprised at the things that I was hearing. It was more so of the extent they went to hide it from us here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then also knowing that my grandmother knew all of this, and she didn't talk about it either. So that the trauma of the massacre worked in the fact that in order for us to be able to rebuild it, we would have had to known about it, but our grandparents and parents weren't comfortable talking about it anymore. So kind of the defense mechanism for me was to, when I talk about it in detail, but try not to think about the extent of it. So because when I first started doing tours, I would always have to stop. My tours used to last for about 20, 25 minutes. Dr. Boyce was able to take one that lasted close to an hour and a half, 2 hours, because now I'm a little more comfortable doing it. But at first it was kind of awkward. So after Dr. A.C. Jackson, we had Mabel B. Little. So with Mabel B. Little, she was more responsible for the second generation of Greenwood. She helped recruit new business people to come in. But what I was drawn to Mabel B. Little with was the fact that she ran Madam C.J. Walker's beauty parlor. So all my life, I never knew Madam C.J. Walker had a beauty parlor here in Greenwood. So, and after I found that out, I went to find the address of it, and I was able to find that it's literally maybe less than half a block away from my coffee shop. So had urban renewal not come through Tulsa, Oklahoma, had we not put a highway right through the heart of Greenwood, we would have still had Madam C.J. Walker's beauty parlor, which would have been one of only two of her businesses that are still standing. She has one in Indianapolis, of course, but the one here was destroyed in the 60s. So had that been allowed to stay, we would have had a piece of history still right here. So Mabel B. Little moved here from Boley, Oklahoma, which was one of the black towns. Oklahoma has more black towns than anywhere in the U.S., and that was because this was supposed to be the first black and native state. So that's why we have so many. When she moved here, she ran Madam C.J. Walker's beauty parlor. It was 2 weeks and 4 days after the massacre took place that 2 weeks and 4 days after her hair salon was built that the massacre took place. Her husband built her home hair salon by hand, and they destroyed it before she could ever actually open it. So the house that you're seeing, that's the Mabel B. Little house. Mabel B. Little lived in it very briefly towards the end of her life. Still sits on the north end of Greenwood. we do tours of it from time to time. But Mabel B. Little was one of the people. She and Mary Jones Parrish, which is the other lady, they continued to talk about what happened in Greenwood at times that other people didn't. They also were able to help recruit new business people to come into Greenwood, which sparked the second generation. So, as I mentioned earlier, Greenwood did not stop in 1921. It ran all the way up until 1972. It was urban renewal that actually destroyed Greenwood. It did more property damage because after the massacre, the people still owned the rights to the land. Versus with urban renewal, they used the eminent domain law to take pretty much about 75% of the land in Greenwood was taken during urban renewal. So, and you were only given 30% of your property value. So it ensured that people could rent a new space, more than likely, but you wouldn't have enough money to actually purchase new land and build what you had built here. So what it let me know is during the massacre, the land was supposed to be taken away from the people. The people in Greenwood were supposed to have fled the area to never come back, and then this land could have been taken by the city. But instead, they stayed here. And after they stayed here, they rebuilt it. So they went from 197 businesses in the 36 block radius to 232 businesses in a 40 block radius the second time. That 40 block radius was completely built out by 1929. So it just shows that the people that were here were not giving up, and they were willing to fight and grow their neighborhood. So my grandmother was born in Greenwoods Hospital, the second generation, which was Morton Hospital. So she was born in 1926. So she knew all of second generation Greenwood. So that sense of community didn't die with that massacre. It lasted here until the 70s. And then
so let me jump in again on that, brother, because I'd like to ask you this. So just to reiterate, for everybody that's kind of listening. So you're saying that rather than, and this is another point that a lot of people don't really know, is that it's not like the massacre happened and then Black Wall Street kind of died. They actually rebuilt and even flourished. And so it wasn't so much the massacre that killed it. It was really urban renewal, eminent domain, basically taking the property for 1/3 of the value or 30% of the purchase price. So it seems to me that if you're talking about something like, say, reparations or anything like that, you ain't got to go all the way back to the 1920s. You could go back just to the 1970s, it sounds like. Is that correct?
Yes. As of lately, every time there's been a lawsuit about it, it's always directly tied to 1921, when urban renewal is what actually took the land from people. The way they built the highway through the heart of Greenwood, it destroyed Greenwood's 4 main streets, which were Greenwood, Archer, Hartford, and Cameron. So it's called the Crosstown Highway. It's the only highway in the city that runs southeast and northwest. Every other highway we have in this city runs north and south or east and west. They don't go crosstown that way. It was built where there's no exit into the Greenwood district, so it drives all of the traffic outside of it. The first sign to actually show where Greenwood wasn't put on that highway until 1997. So the highway was finished in 1974. So just that level of damage is what actually destroyed it. When I was a kid, I was here in Greenwood, but we didn't talk about it. We didn't know what it was as kids. And so I thought it was just old buildings. When you come here, there's a set of bricks that I take people to. They're the actual bricks from the massacre. They're on the front of one of the buildings we still have here. Out of that 40 block radius, there is 1 block of buildings that are still here from back then. So the other 39 blocks are completely gone. The only piece of land actually owned by Black people in Black Wall Street is the Oklahoma Eagle, which is about maybe half an acre. But that's the only piece of land that Black people actually own in the Greenwood district. So urban renewal took place all over the country. But here it ravaged this community. Another reason it was successful for the city of Tulsa was at that same time, the city of Tulsa changed the integration laws here. So at the same time that the Black grocery store is being torn down, the movie theater, the bank, the homes, you're now told you can shop on the white side of town. You can go to Sears. So they tricked us here by telling us Sears and Roebuck, Mr. Roebuck was a Black man, so you're technically shopping Black, whereas Mr. Roebuck owned less than 5% of Sears. So it was strategic in knowing that Black people wanted to shop Black, that wanted to do that. And so at the time, you no longer have a grocery store of your own. So you have to come to the one that we have. And then also that forced people to move closer to the resources. So their property values are low now because there's no businesses here. There's no traffic here anymore. So when they sell their property, it's for a lot less than what it would have been worth had they been able to keep it and keep Greenwood established. So the people in Greenwood, that's how they actually lost their things. And then the last person I was going to talk to you about is J.B. Stratford. J.B. Stratford was an attorney from Kentucky. He was actually the wealthiest person in Greenwood. In today's money, he'd have been worth closer to $50 million. So this was the first generation freedman as well. His parents were enslaved in Canada, and then they moved to Kentucky after they got their freedom. So when he got here, O.W. Gurley recruited him. He was the first big business person O.W. Gurley recruited. He ended up building the largest Black-owned hotel in America right here in Greenwood. So it was called Stratford Hotel. It was over 230 seats. What I liked about him is he had a little bit of petty in him. He found out that O.W. Gurley had the largest Black-owned hotel in America, which was 117 rooms. So J.B. Stratford built his to be 234 rooms. And it's almost directly across the street from O.W. Gurley's hotel. So I always like that about him. But also the thing I read about him and O.W. Gurley is that they never argued publicly. No one ever saw them have a disagreement publicly. So the two leaders of this particular place, I'm sure, had disagreements at some point, but they had a united front anytime they were out in the community, which I think made all the difference here in Greenwood. J.B. Stratford was the first person to take up arms and prepare to go downtown to get Dick Rowland out of jail. Dick Rowland was the shoe shiner. Sarah Page was the elevator operator. That's what the massacre was centered around. But he was even though he was the wealthiest person here, he was fully willing to take up arms and be the first person downtown and try to get him out. Whereas that's not something you would expect from a person who didn't even know who Dick Rowland was. He just knew Dick Rowland was a kid from Greenwood. So when he got there, the white mobs were already there. Dick Rowland had already been released because the city of Tulsa dropped the charges on him. Sarah Page had actually said Dick Rowland did not assault her, so they couldn't lynch him that night. So the white mobs were upset that Dick Rowland was not going to be lynched. Of course, the Black group was wanting Dick Rowland released. He was already released and sent to Kansas. They just didn't know at the time. A fight broke out while they were there. One white man fired a gun in the air. The Greenwood crew turned to come back to Greenwood, and then the mobs followed them into Greenwood, and that's when the massacre started. The battle lasted for about 16 hours. May 31st, it was a gunfight. June 1st is when the planes were brought in. The first plane belonged to Tate Brady, who was the chairman of the Klan, but also the founding father of Tulsa. He is the Klansman that most of Greenwood was named after up until about 2 or 3 years ago. Greenwood was called the Brady Arts District, named after Tate Brady, because his theater, the Tulsa Theater is what it's called now. It was called the Old Lady on Brady, the Brady Theater. So his mansion is only about 1.5 miles away from the Greenwood area. So it's pretty close. He lent his planes to the mobs, which they were crop dusting planes. They doused everything in kerosene from above and then flew back over and dropped Molotov cocktails basically on top of them, which started the fires from the top of the buildings to make it incredibly difficult to put out the fires. but also they used kerosene because kerosene fires are extremely hard to put out and water does not work. So these fires were left burning for almost 4 days. And that's what ended up destroying Greenwood at that time. After it was over, June 5th is when the city of Tulsa tried to change the fire code here in Tulsa. And it said any structure that was not fireproof, the city could confiscate the land. So this is after they had burned it. Um, they did take the land from the Greenwood community, but an attorney by the name of B.C. Franklin sued the city of Tulsa on June 6th. He was able to get the people their land back after that. But every insurance claim that they filed going forward was denied. They were not allowed to get any insurance money because the National Guard, as well as the city government, documented everything as a riot and that Black people were burning their own things and the whites were here to stop them and stop the Negro uprising. That was what it was like.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in on this and ask you about this, and so maybe we can start. Just so you know, that's my little sign to say I'm gonna jump in for a minute, but because I don't want to interrupt you, man, because you're doing a great job, brother, and could y'all please like take a moment and just give a digital like appreciation point for this brother, like let him know how much you appreciate this and how much it's affecting you. I hope some of y'all brought your kids and your families because this is the real Black history. I just want to make this point. We have this whole debate, are they going to teach us Black history at school? They're going to teach critical race theory. Well, I don't want other people teaching our kids. I want people like this brother right here teaching our, you got Dr. Claudine. So you got all kinds of people that are fully capable of giving us what we need. We don't need nobody else telling us our story. So you got to be thoughtful about that. And so let's talk about the insurance claims. One thing that really left an impression on me, Kode, was when you showed me all the claims that were made and the amounts of the money. It was like a monument, if I recall correctly. And there was only one person who had their claim accepted, and that was only because he checked white on the box or something like that. Is that accurate? Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so his name was J.W. McGee. J.W. McGee would have been Black in Chickasaw, but he was extremely fair-skinned and he had gray eyes. So he marked that he was white on his insurance claim, and subsequently he was paid. His brother, who looked almost identical to him, did not check that, so he was denied. So every other insurance claim other than J.W. McGee was denied, and he was paid for his guns and ammunition because they thought he was white. Whites were able to get paid for the guns and ammunition and they used to kill Black residents, to torment Black residents. They were paid for it because they were city appointed deputies. So that was their reimbursement. You just had to say how many bullets you used or how many guns you used, and you could be reimbursed for that. So that monument, I tell everybody who comes through Greenwood to take a picture of it because people find all the time that they had family here in the Greenwood district based on that monument. The way it's set up is in alphabetical order. It tells the exact dollar amount that they filed for, as well as the first and last name of the person. So these people were from all over the U.S. when they moved here. They were coming here for this Black state. So I know that's how I found out I had family here. The insurance company that they were using, they had their own insurance companies here, insurance agents here, but they were backed by insurance companies in Tulsa. So they were just agents for those agencies. So because of the National Guard putting riot on everything, that meant that, you burned it yourself, and so we don't owe you. I know one of the images we've seen is an image of a white man in Greenwood during the massacre, but his entire body was painted Black. So he was burning buildings, setting things on fire, looting the homes. So that was partially them pushing the narrative of Black people were destroying their own things. This is little Africa. This is the way they behave. We're here to stop them from burning the city. Whereas no Black person actually ever left the Greenwood district and destroyed anything outside of the Greenwood district. There was not one building in Tulsa set on fire. Every bit of the property damage took place within the parameters of Greenwood. this was the first time a lot of whites had ever been into Greenwood's district. The Black community had been in Tulsa before. Some people worked in Tulsa at that time, but most of the white community had never been into Greenwood. And so this being their first time seeing it, this was a Black oasis. This was what Booker T. Washington named the Negro version of Wall Street, which is where he got his name, Black Wall Street. So just knowing that there's images that exist that show people walking into the fires dressed up. They're going in to see what they can find in these homes, to loot the homes, to help burn them. There's women, there's kids, there's images that, as I showed you, Dr. Boyce, there's an image of a 4-year-old boy here in Greenwood who's holding his 2-year-old sister. She was completely decapitated during the massacre. So for me, it was bad enough that had happened to that little girl. It was even worse that someone had that little boy pose for a picture and took that picture. So to know that images like that existed, I know when I first started reading about the massacre, I thought it was soldiers fighting soldiers when I was first told about it. But when I first seen that image of that little boy, they're standing in front of their home, which was completely destroyed. So the idea that it's not like today where you just pull out a cell phone and do it. This was a time that to take a picture took a lot of work. And so for someone to take that picture, it really changed the way I looked at it. I didn't look at the rioters as humans anymore. They were something else that came in through here. Now, Greenwood was not unique in Black massacres, as I said earlier. So you have Oscarville, Georgia, which used to be a Black town. It's Lake Lanier now. So that Black town was burned, and then the city flooded it. They made a man-made lake out of it. So that Black town's buildings, the remnants of those old buildings are actually still underneath Lake Lanier. You got Oscarville, Georgia, which used to be Seneca Village. That was a Black town in New York. They burned it and made a city park out of it. There's Rosewood, Florida, Ocoye, Florida. There's Elaine, Arkansas, Wilmington, North Carolina. There's East St. Louis, Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, Cincinnati, Ohio. Like these places all had Black massacres that took place there. Greenwood was the most deadly, whereas over 300 people died here. But it was not a unique thing with Black towns being burned just for the simple fact that they were prominent. So Elaine was another one. So it kind of let me know that the only thing that was different here is the city government participated. The National Guard came in. They only arrested Black citizens. The exact number of homes that were burned was 1,256. And to know that these people were kept in these internment camps for over a year, when they got out of the internment camps, they couldn't buy building material in Oklahoma. Tate Brady had said he would never allow Little Africa to be rebuilt. And so they had to buy all of their materials from outside of the state of Oklahoma. So to know that these people did it anyway, it made me think about how many times I say that I don't know how to do something or something stopping me from doing something. And so it reminds me that those are words, those are real boundaries, but these people were able to build these things at a time that Black people were killed for having dreams like this. So the fact that they not only dreamed about it, they went and built it. But the sense of community in Greenwood is the part that I was most attached to. So Dr. Boyce and his family coming here, I try to make sure like tours don't feel like a school session. It's family. You're talking to family. Greenwood's story is all about stories because these families came from the cities that you all live in. These families were they were building something not just for themselves. They were building something for us as a whole, to where Greenwood existed today. We all would have come to it. It was that beacon. So part of the reason Greenwood was able to be Oklahoma had the most black towns because of the Trail of Tears. That ran from 1831 to 1877. What's not taught about the Trail of Tears is that the 5 civilized tribes actually enslaved Africans too. So they were considered to be civilized because they, number one, had given up the fight for their land, and number two, they practiced the American system of slavery. So during the Trail of Tears, over 150,000 Africans actually died on the walks from the East Coast to here. So once they got here, they were considered freedmen once they earned their freedom from the Native American tribes. Right outside of pretty much every major reservation in the state of Oklahoma, there's a black town or multiple black towns. Reason being, the Native Americans didn't want to share their land with the African American people. So instead of sharing the land on the actual reservation, they pushed them to the outside of the reservation. So here we had the term $5 Indian is what was used here. What that was is after Henry Dawes created the Dawes Roll to track Native Americans and their benefits, you're given a roll number. If you didn't have a roll number, you couldn't get the Native American benefits. So what they would do is Klansmen or white people would pay $5 to replace a black person on the Dawes Roll. So by replacing that black person on the Dawes Roll, you inherit the land that African American person was supposed to get. And typically the common practice then is they would sell part of that land back to the Native American tribes. So it was a system that the Native Americans and the white Americans were using in order to block black people out of wealth building, which was the land ownership, but also be able to get part of the land back, knowing that the African American people were not going to sell the land back. So during that time period, Tate Brady participated in doing something similar. The Osage murders is what it's called here, but Killers of the Flower Moon is what most people know it as. That was a federal mandate that a month before the Greenwood Massacre, the federal government had passed a bill that said Native American women couldn't own land unless they were married. And so Klansmen would murder the husbands and then marry the Native American wife. Being white, they were able to inherit the land that the Native American women were supposed to get. So they would use that land to build cities. So Tulsa was built on Native American land, and that's how they were able to get Tulsa's land. So we have Tate Brady did it. Yes, sir.
Let me jump in. I gotta.
You're good.
I'm laughing because I don't know about everybody else in here, but I'm about to throw up. I'm feeling physical symptoms, and I know you see this all the time, man, because the way you tell the story is unbelievable. But I every now and then I got to take a breather. I feel like I'm like hearing this is like I feel like I'm underwater, and it's like sometimes I'm like I got to come up for air and just process what I just heard. So you're telling me now, let's just like I need everybody to process this. So you're saying that the Klansmen used to, and this is all documented, this is all facts. They would, if they wanted your land, they would engage in the savage act of murdering your husband and then forcing the wife to marry him. It ain't no love in this game. It's just I'm gonna marry you so that I can then take over this property. And this is documented, and nobody in Oklahoma is going back and tracing this and getting that property back at all. We ain't even talked about what happened, the $1 trillion in wealth that was stolen with the whole $5 Indian scam. But that's out there too, right? Dr. Claude Anderson has talked about that as well. So is that what you're saying? Like they really did this type of stuff?
Yeah, actually, it's crazy, but art is what's going to bring it to a lot of people's minds. Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro were here this year filming a movie called Killers of the Flower Moon, which is about the Osage murders. So they're actually doing a movie about it now. So it'll be interesting to see like what parts they actually put in there. But that was a practice that a lot of people use. Now the Native American women were forced to go along with it because if you don't, you can't own the land that you own without your husband. So you were able to keep a part of it by marrying Tate Brady, or there's Judge Robert Owen who denied all the insurance claims. We have a historic district named after him, Owen Park District. Lee Clinton was a Klansman that participated. We had a middle school named after him up until about 3 years ago. Ariel Jones participated. Our airport on the south side is named after him. So all of these different people, they participated in these things to build generational wealth. They were able to get land doing so. Then you have Charles Page. He didn't participate in Killers of the Flower Moon. What he did was he created an orphanage in West Tulsa. That orphanage predominantly adopted Black and Native kids. Reason being, the Black kids were more than likely freedmen at the time, and the Native American kids had Native benefits. So by adopting them and becoming their dad, I now control the land that these kids were supposed to get when they turned 18. So most of West Tulsa and all of Sand Springs are built on Native American land of people who went through Charles Page's orphanage, which the story of Big Rollin and Sarah Page brings it into context because Sarah Page was white, and I believe it was Creek. So Sarah Page she was in Charles Page's orphanage. So she was part Creek. So she was part Native as well. So there's a group here. It's called the Center for Public Secrets. It's here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But they did a story about the architects of a massacre. But it talks about all of these people, the leaders of Tulsa at the time, and how everything they had done up until May 31st of 1921 was basically preparing them for what they were getting ready to do here. It talks about their Klan ties. There's a Klan roll sheet from 1918, which has all of Tulsa's founding fathers on it. And it actually exists in Tulsa Historical Society. It's all over. We just don't use it. It's so seeing the way land was taken here, the methods that were used in doing it, like I said, from the $5 Indian all the way up until Killers of the Flower Moon. And then to know that through all of that, Black people built wealth, not just in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but all over the country. And then you have Greenwood being officially established in 1905, whereas Oklahoma didn't become a state until 1907. So O.W. Gurley got here in 1889 during the land run. He had started to build in 89, but he officially established this in 1905, 1906. All of the different Black town leaders met in Muskogee, Oklahoma, in order to apply for statehood. President Theodore Roosevelt made a trip to Muskogee, Oklahoma, and he gave a speech about the danger in allowing an all-Black state in the U.S. His main reason was Oklahoma was oil territory. Tulsa was quickly becoming the oil capital of the entire world at that time. And so what he said was, if Black people were able to control the land, we would deny America the oil. So we could cripple America's economy because we would have controlled the oil at that time, and we would have sold it to rival countries. So just in context to show how dumb that is, there's no way to sell that oil to Russia and skip right over Texas. So
well, let me jump in on this, man, because I want everybody to understand what Kode's discussing here. What he's discussing is something, you and I, all of us, we talk about every week, which is economic warfare. This is a Powernomics concept. You look right now, for example, why is everybody upset about Russia and Vladimir Putin? Because he controls oil, right? That's how he's basically choking the world and saying, I'm not going to let the Europeans have my natural gas and oil. So now they're having an economic crisis in Europe because Vladimir Putin is withholding the oil. So this ownership of land, this is why it's very important as a key principle in your family to make sure your children understand that their goal in life is to acquire land and property as much as they can possibly get, because that's what made Black people a threat. You ain't no threat by being a thug. You ain't no threat by marching and praying and whatever else we doing. You become a threat, though, when you own property and you own land. That was what scared them the most. Kode, please continue, brother. I'm gonna run to the restroom. Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the part that most of us didn't get. That ownership is what created Greenwood, because it wasn't on rented land. This land was owned by the African Americans in this community. So being owned by us, we were able to build anything we wanted here. But when you think about what was in Greenwood, this was a place that was its own entire city. So it had everything from first generation did not have a bank. That was the only major institution we didn't have, first generation. Second generation did build a bank. But outside of that, there's a Black-owned hospital. Most people have never seen a Black-owned hospital. But we had two during Greenwood's time. They had their own gas stations. There were 21 grocery stores, 23 churches. So Greenwood had everything: jewelers, investment companies, insurance companies, its own electric company. It's something I talk about during my tours, but I joke about the fact that Greenwood had a Waffle House over 100 years ago. So I, for one, am a fan of Waffle House. I don't know why, but to know that Greenwood had all of these different things, and it was able to thrive because of it. Was able to thrive because of all the different Black people that came in. So what it taught me more than anything was that Greenwood residents had a spirit to them that no matter where you came from, you and I both come from a similar community. We're the same. We're able to build here. And so to know that these people through those fires were able to rebuild this place. Not only rebuild it bigger. Once they rebuilt it, it thrived all the way up until urban renewal. So urban renewal was really
Oh, it looks like Cody froze. Hey, Cody, can you hear us? You know what? I think he's gonna. I'm sure he'll get back in. I'm sure it might be a Wi-Fi issue. But how do you? Didn't I tell you that this conversation was gonna be heavy? Didn't I tell y'all this? Yeah, this is yeah, I saw Cody do his presentation in Tulsa when I was there, and I said, okay, this is freaking me out right now, and but believe it or not, there's a ton of stuff that he still hasn't even touched. There's a ton of stuff about Dick Rowland and things that actually happened during the massacre. It will absolutely floor you. I'm telling you, I promise you it'll floor you. What I'm gonna do is let me see if I can get him back on. I'm gonna text him. If I can't get him back on, you know what? There he is. I think he's coming back. Hey, Cody.
Yep.
Oh, you back? Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you know what? Maybe this is God's work, man, because I think about an hour of this is like almost. Yeah. I've almost hit my capacity, man. I feel like I'm just like, okay, I need to go meditate. I don't even smoke, but I might go smoke a joint. I'm kidding. I'm not going to. I don't drink or smoke. Y'all know that. But still, I have that feeling. I might go eat some strawberry ice cream or something. That's the Dr. Boyce way of smoking the joint. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and let you continue to have the floor, man. And I'm thinking maybe we do another 10 minutes or so, and then you and I can chop it up about how we can bring you back in. Because in the Black Business School, one thing we believe in is educating our own children, creating our own jobs, and supporting Black businesses, right? So you have a Black business called the Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge. I want everybody, if you go to Tulsa, and everybody should make a trip. I'm telling you, Tulsa is really growing and evolving. I encourage you to go, and everybody's got to support this business. So give me a promise, give me a yes in the chat that when you go to Tulsa, you're going to look this brother up, let him know that you saw him here, so that we can make our impression. Because I really want to think about, even when you talk about the acquisition of land and things like that. You said it earlier. You said, look, if they could do all that back then with the obstacles they had, K doesn't stop us. We can do whatever we want. So please continue. I was in the other room and I heard the talking stop, so I ran in here to check on you. So go ahead, man. Sounds like you're ready to go.
Yeah, so the last thing I was actually gonna point out is just the fact that um, these people here had a sense of community that most of us have never seen before, but it's not that we can't recreate it. The Dreamland Theater had another theater called the Dixie directly across the street from it. The Williams family actually loaned that family money to build a theater directly across the street from them. So that alone speaks to the sense of community that people have, because the way we are in our current position is if you had a theater on one side of the street and I built one across the street from you, you would we would probably say bad things about each other on Instagram. That's kind of the method we use now. So to know that not only did they see another theater being put across the street, they helped invest in it, because they understood that there were over 10,000 people that lived and worked in this area. And so having another theater was beneficial to both of them. So that sense of building community is just what Greenwood's story should inspire. I shared a ton of the trauma with you, but whenever you're here, I'm able to show you and kind of connect you with some of the people and the the tasks that people are doing to help bring back the community aspect of it. I think it's important for us to know what those traumas were because we all actually deal with it, whether you know it or not. You're part of it as well. That PTSD translates, but that entrepreneurial spirit is in the blood of us all. So if these people were able to do it again through the obstacles that they would have had over 100 years ago, we have the benefit of Google and YouTube. We can learn how to do anything in the world off of there, and to know that these parts of Black history, when February comes up, I tell my kids all the time, here's I love Malcolm X, Dr. King, and Huey Newton, but if you don't bring me a new person every February, we're going to have a problem. Like there's Black history being made all the time, and we don't have to keep it in this bubble of these are the Black people that were talked about in school. Because all of the people I named to you today, not one of them has ever been talked about during Black History Month here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So next year will be the first year that I'm actually a school teacher now for that reason, just so I can be around in February to make sure to implement some newer people into it so that these kids know that the entrepreneurial spirit is a part of them and that they can build Greenwood. They have access to literally everything at their fingertips. So if we teach them the history and give them the tools, uh, by the time I'm old and gray, we should have some Black Wall Street back here in Greenwood.
Well, you know what, brother, I love it, and I like the way you ended on the inspirational note, man. And everybody, if you could give a digital thank you, a digital round of applause for his brother Kode Ransom. Kode Ransom is the CEO and founder of the Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right in the Greenwood section. If you are in the area or if you want to make a fun trip, go there. You get to walk on that sacred ground. Hear the real story, get your own real history from real people that really care about you. And Kode, I'm gonna give you a call after we get done, and we can talk business because I'd like to talk about how we can, incorporate you in the Black Business School on some level, and also talk about. I know a lot of folks in here are doers; they're not just talkers, and they probably want to go and figure out how to buy some property in that area or something like that. So maybe we can brainstorm and figure out something we can do as a collective project and go, make a difference in this world. So thank you, man. I appreciate you coming in today.
Yes, sir. Not a problem. Not a problem. I'm with it. And yeah, anytime any of you ever come out, yeah, you pop in here. The way I do the tours is you just have to shop Black. The tour won't cost you anything. Shop Black. Doesn't have to be my particular coffee shop. There's numerous Black businesses down here. And yeah, any questions, anything like that, I'd be more than happy to help you all with them.
All right, right on, right on. Okay, all right, everybody. Well, thank you all for hanging out with us tonight. I told you now. Did we deliver? Didn't I tell y'all that this was gonna be like off the chain? Didn't I say that? Tell me, give me a yes if we delivered on that. I want to make sure y'all agree and y'all okay, because it was I was excited, man. I said, I can't wait to have this brother in. And it's and you're good, man. You're really good at what you do. And I figured the least I could do is lend my little platform to elevate and amplifying your voice, man, because what you're doing is a blessing for a lot of people. And he's a good guy. You know, we haven't even known each other that long, but everything I saw, man, me and my family were very impressed. And so everybody, I want to before we head on out, two things. One, Kode, I'm gonna give you a call right after we get done, so you and I could just kind of talk about it and I guess recap a couple of things. But then also, I want to remind everybody, don't forget the All Black National Convention is October 28th through the 30th in Charlotte, North Carolina. If you haven't got your passes yet, just go to allblacknationalconvention.com. I know some of you may not be able to make it. We do have virtual passes. You go to boycewatkins.com. That's where the virtual passes are. If you want to see the schedule and the itinerary, or you want to be a vendor, or we even have a couple spots for sponsorships for Black-owned businesses that care about the community, where we can market you, whatever the case may be. So feel free to go to allblacknationalconvention.com. And stuff like this is the stuff that we can do. We can do this ourselves. We don't need no public school system teaching our kids. We can do it ourselves. We don't need corporations or Black liberation brought to you by Walmart and all the other nonsense. We can do this ourselves. We are the OW girlies. You know, we are the sons and daughters of Black Wall Street, and we got everything that we need right inside of us. We just have to have the confidence, and we can do this. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, please have a good night. It was real. It was wonderful seeing everybody. Thank you again to our guest, Kode Ransom, CEO and founder of the Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge in Tulsa. So God bless you guys, and please have a wonderful night, and we will see you.